Here we are. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, all. Good morning, one and all. Well, I have to say, it's definitely getting into the spring of things now. The weather is definitely looking up in terms of walking. Although it wasn't yesterday. I went on a long walk yesterday and got absolutely drenched in a sudden downpour. But no, today's looking very, very well. The sky is roughly just about blue. There's a bit of clouds over there, but it doesn't look like it's going to rain. But other than that, yeah, things are looking very well in terms of weather. I might be able to even stop wearing my wellies soon. Shock of all horrors. Because some of you have obviously seen during the past good morning walks that we've had some very, very muddy fields today. But today I'm just going through it, and the area where we normally see, just show you behind me there, that area would normally be chock full of mud, and you'd normally be able to hear the squelching of my wellies. You can't now, which is quite good. I think we've done quite well, so we might be able to change my wellies back to my walking boots, which will be nice, because I'm not gonna lie, walking some distance in wellies is a bit weird. But other than that, yes, good morning, good morning, good morning. So good morning from the Pacific Northwest. Good morning to you. I can't read that. What a lovely morning indeed. Good morning there. Oh well, that's exactly what we're talking about this morning. Frank, sorry, I don't know what it is today. My screens look just awful today. Should have given it a good clean before we started. But yes, we are talking about the left today, because I've got some issues with the left that need to be talked about, because as I am a person on the left, I like it when we win, I hate it when we lose, and sometimes you've got to be pragmatic about some of the stuff that we do on the left, and that's our biggest problem on the left, is we're not very pragmatic, but we'll get into that later. Good morning from the Netherlands. It's a bit windy. Yeah, it is a bit windy again, unfortunately. Like I say, I haven't brought my mic, unfortunately, because, well, the past couple of times we've done it, it's been it hasn't worked. Wind's very loud, and I'm sorry about that today. So I haven't brought my mic today because, like I say, the past couple of times I've tried it hasn't been working. So we're gonna have to probably gonna have to buy another mic again. Hope that one works, because like I say, annoyingly enough, that it just like I say, when I've put the mic in before, it's just decided not to work at all, or half work, or whatever. So it's been very, very annoying. But like I say, I thought I'd try it today, because I thought that it might not be that windy today, and like I say, if it's not that windy, then I can use it without the mic. So I took a risk on it today, but when I get home today, I'll put in an order for a new microphone. I might even try get a lapel microphone. We'll see how that works. But yes, good morning everyone, one and all. As we hinted at today there, we will be talking about my annoyances with the left in the UK. This is not the worldwide left. We're talking very, very specifically in the UK. These are my huge bugbears with them. So, for those of you who want some pony action, they're all here today. Because I know you've been missing them. So, the left, and particularly the UK left, it is beyond any shadow of a doubt that we in the UK have a fantastic left socialist working class traditions, and that is beyond and should be beyond a shadow of a doubt talking about. You know, we are a very lefty country. We were the first country to, you know, bring in socialised healthcare to the masses. You know, we have a very, very strong history of labour unions, of, you know, working men versus, you know, the owning class in this country. Very, very strong, not only socialist roots, but very good Marxist roots, even though I know that's some people consider it a bit of a dirty word, but hey, it is true. But we have that tradition, you know, even back in, like I say, many of you know I come from Barnsley, and Barnsley was pretty much the area during the 80s for the miners' strike. You know, it pretty much was ground zero for us in the miners' strike. Of course, since then, there's been a lot of big changes. And particularly, we've got to talk about nationalism when it was necessary, like after World War II. Thing is, nationalism, or nationalisation, shall we say, it is a complex subject, because see, this is such a complex subject. I don't really know where to start sometimes with this, because I was like, how should I start this? Where do I begin? Do I talk about the left, or do I talk about other things first? I think we'll talk about the left before we get into specific subjects first, like nationalisation. And we've got to start with the Corbyn eras, the Corbyn years, because I'll tell you now, you will be able to find videos of my channel of me being very, very sceptical of Mr. Corbyn when he first came in. I was a bit, we'll see how he goes, but I'll tell you what, Corbyn won me over. Corbyn did absolutely win me over. And from an outsider's perspective, it was his overall policies that I saw, if they were implemented, would be able to bring a huge transformational change to this country. And I still think that, and a lot of people in the Labour Party still very, very much think that. I mean, during the pandemic, a lot of the Labour grassroots movements have all been very much vastly in favour of going out there, volunteering, you know, on the groundwork, getting into food banks, helping out with deliveries, and they've all gone and organised in their local areas. And that has been very good. That has, I have to say, has been very, very, very good. But of course, I think the problem that we are seeing at the moment is, as many people have said it, the Blairites have now taken back control. And overall, that's not overall a bad thing, because they're in control now, but they spent the whole Corbyn years complaining about how they had lost the party, about how they would do it better, about how they would win elections. Well, guess what? They're now back in control of the party. It's their turn to bat. And if they fail, then we've essentially proven, right, that people aren't for those neoliberal policies anymore. But even though that they're in charge, and I've said this hundreds of times, and I keep on going to say it until it's firmly, in your head, that we can do so much more if we are in the party rather than if we are outside it or even in another party. Because the only way the left gets in power in the UK is if we are in the Labour Party. It is the only way we get in power. And I think a lot of people seem to have forgotten that, especially recently with Starmer taking over, because obviously when Starmer took over, there was this big movement of, oh, we're going to leave the party, we're going to leave, we're so disappointed, and yeah, a lot of people did leave the Labour Party. But again, as I've said to them, you are fools for leaving the Labour Party. Because during the Corbyn years, we scored some massive successes. We got more very left-leaning MPs into the Labour Party than ever before. And the problem is now, is that it's very, very clear that Starmer and the rest of his team aren't very well, they don't want to listen to anything anyone from the Corbyn era ever had to say. But like I say, we had some fantastic successes. We had, under Corbyn, one of the biggest youth turnout votes the UK has ever seen. We've had the biggest turnout for Labour since the end of the Second World War. We had policies that when they were polled and not attached to the party, were getting 60-70% approval ratings. The only problem was when you attached them to Labour or you mentioned Corbyn in the same name, everyone started turning their nose up. Now, why did they start turning their nose up? It was because we on the left lacked, or especially Corbyn's team, seemed to lack the understanding that if you are in power, you have to play the spin game. And I remember just a couple of weeks ago when we were on this walk, a lot of people being very annoyed at me, saying, oh, you're advocating that Corbyn should have lied or something like that. No, you have to play the spin game, meaning if Corbyn's team had done their job properly and the right people had been there and they'd had their own Alistair Campbell, then the right-wing newspapers would have not had so much effect as for literally most of the population to think that Corbyn was some sort of terrorist, infiltrator, Manchurian candidate, which turned a lot of people off voting for Labour, especially the working class, the group who, Labour needs to represent. That is, that's the truth of it. If you are not playing the spin game, then you aren't. And obviously the other problem was that we had other MPs that just didn't like Corbyn from the word go and tried everything they possibly could to get rid of him. They were constantly throwing smears his way, and obviously the big thing that actually stuck and that did huge damage to him was obviously the anti-Semitism stuff. Now, if you actually look at that whole thing, there were cases of people who were anti-Semitic and had said anti-Semitic things that were thrown out of the Labour Party. They were thrown out. But under the, what we're told by the press, that didn't happen, or investigations didn't take place. And yeah, the Corbyn team absolutely dropped the ball when it came to it, because they could not play the spin game well enough to get the truth out, to let people know, hey, this is what's going on. And again, that did huge damage. But it was mostly because some, not all, of the Jewish groups in Labour were heavily against Jeremy Corbyn's stance on the Israeli-Palestine conflict. He very much now believed that the Palestinians were being heavily victimised, and again, when you look at the situation, they are, by the Israeli government. And those groups didn't like that. But there were many other Jewish groups which stood up and supported Corbyn and said, no, he's right. So, in other news as well, as you know, this week we passed over 200 local Labour parties, or central local Labour parties, now backing PR. As of yesterday, that number has gone up to 200 and I think we're up to 207, 208 now, backing proportional representation. And like I say, I think this year at the Labour Party conference, there is going to be an almighty kickoff, because there is a lot of people, myself included, will refer to us as the grassroots. We don't feel that Starmer is doing a good enough job. Now, yes, he has done some very good work in holding Boris to account during the coronavirus, but not completely good enough, unfortunately. Not completely good enough. And this is where at the next next national conference, we need to hit that home, and we need to say, hey, we need to you need to listen to us, or else you're going to lose even more. And that really is a big justification, because during the Corbyn years, we called for unity constantly, but those MPs that were just against Corbyn from the start just didn't want unity. They were very, very actively open against it. We even saw, if you remember, the Labour leaks, you know, the Labour leaks were so damning about what the upper echelons of the party were about. They wanted the Labour to lose. And you know, if you're in a party and if you're in a political party and you want your side to lose, then should you really be in the party to begin with, you know? And I've been saying it a lot recently that, you know, you can't out-Tory a Tory, which a lot of us in the lefty Labour Party really do feel like at the moment. We do feel like that Starmer is trying to be a more responsible and reasonable Tory party, but that is not what he should be, because it doesn't differentiate what Labour is. It doesn't make the Labour Party different. You know, when we saw the leak of Labour's new, quote, you know, policies, and, you know, it needed more union jackage and needed to lean more into nationalism and stuff like that, one of the big key things that I saw was that people did not understand what the Labour Party stands for. And the problem is, if you try to imitate the Tory party, you are not going to win people over, because people who vote Tory are always going to vote Tory unless you give them a good, reasonable position to vote for you for. And that is possible, because shockingly, the Blairites proved that you can get Conservative people to vote for Labour. And hence why there does need to be unity in the party, but not at any cost. And I think that the message should have been, if you're not in, you know, if you're not with us, then you are against us, and you should really be considering your position. And I think Corbyn should have really just gone, well, if you're not going to be with me, I'm just going to take your whip away. You know, that's what he should have done. That's really what he should have done. It would have caused certainly an uproar, but it would certainly have brought people into line. I'll tell you that now. It certainly would have brought them into line. So it's where do we go from here that I think is the big thing. So the first thing I want to address is the lefties who left the Labour Party. You know, dumb idea, because we might have split the parliamentary party into two groups. Not really. Once they've lost the whip, they've lost a lot of power and they can't stand again. And yeah, it would have been a risk. I do agree it would have been a risk, but I think it would have been a risk worth taking. If there are members in your party who essentially are against everything that you are stand for and everything that the change you are trying to bring to the party, what's really left in your arsenal except trying to, you know, convince them? And Momentum, for its part, did say, hey, you need to be with us. And then there were even attempts to remove a lot of these people, and some of them did actually work in removing some of those obstacles. There were recalls cast, and they did sort of work. So there are things that even we can do to do that, but it is, as someone said there, it is a risk that you do split the parliamentary party in two. But at that point, you would have won. Essentially, I think Corbyn would have won that battle. I think there wouldn't have been a continuous Labour civil war. Remember, Corbyn won and fought against two motions of no confidence against him, and won very, very soundly and clearly, because they were in the party and they were for Corbyn. And the problem is you have now left a lot of those lefty MPs that we got in high and dry. Now you're not in the party. And I've said it once and it's worth repeating. Unless the left gets its, seriously takes a good long look at itself and realises that unless it can pass proportional representation, there is no point in scattering among different parties. There is no point being in the Liberal Democrats, the Greens, even the SNP. I know that's going to annoy a lot of people, but it's true. Unless the left coalesces around one party, you ain't gonna, score big victories and even push forward good policies, which again is what we want to do. Anyway, thank you, Minnie. Coffee and have a nice week. And don't try and pronounce my surname. I'll admit, yes, I'm not very good at pronouncing names, unless I've heard someone pronounce them before. And Chris has just bring up a good point. Corbyn wasn't able to lead. Here's the thing. As an orator, I think Corbyn was very good. I think he was very good at being able to get his point across when he could. But the problem was that sometimes he would be very, very weak. Very, very weak. When he came to some of the stuff. And sometimes he wasn't a good leader. And I think that's... If you're going to lead a party, then you have to be a good leader. There's no ifs, ands or buts about it. You have to be a good leader. So that's the big key thing. The other problem was, of course, in the last election, I don't know if you can hear me because obviously the wind's be blowing. Try and talk loud for you. Hopefully the wind's calmed down a bit. This is why I need a microphone. because that Labour didn't say what its policy was on Brexit. So he said, you know, a lot of people felt in the north that their vote wasn't going to be honoured by the Labour Party. But that's absolutely not true. Labour had a Brexit policy of what it intended to do. It intended to pretty much stay in the same. And that was the Brexit policy, and we are going to see soon pretty much why that was the case, why we should have stayed in. Someone else said earlier, you know, Starmer's waiting for his moment to pass. You know, he shouldn't be this is so bad this morning. Don't know. Like I said, hopefully you'll be able to hear me, but like I said, I'm not sure with the I need to get a new microphone today. Yeah, like I said, this is the thing. If it wasn't so windy today, this would have been absolutely perfect. Oh. So I'm a bit rambling, to be honest, at the moment, because it's so disheartening to see sometimes that on the left there is no pragmatism, there is no, hey, let's all be in the Labour Party and agree that maybe we're not going to get everything we want, but we are going to be able to get some of the things we want. But even then, we can still keep pushing for the stuff we want, and we can still keep advocating from within the party and keep pushing our lefty policies into the Labour Party slowly but surely, and that can work. You know, that's how Corbyn came in to power, because Momentum, a big, very big, small group at the time, decided that that's what they were going to do, and they succeeded. And yet there is this idea now that the Corbyn years were all for nothing, that we didn't achieve anything, that nothing was gained, that there was no advancement in policies or anything like that. And yes, we weren't in power to be able to enact change, but we were able to start pushing policies. And look, as I said before, when the policies were talked about from a lefty viewpoint and not associated with any parties or party leaders, those policies were very, very popular. At the beginning, someone said about nationalisation. Well, I think everyone can agree. Again. Sorry for the audio issues today. I've got no control over the wind. Like I say, I should have probably just brought my mic down anyway with my slap mic. I should just rename it to in the way. doggos. Don't know if you can see them. Yeah, hopefully like I say, it's annoying that like I say, now it's perfect. There's no wind at all. And it's like, curse you wind. But yeah, I'm gonna get a new microphone, I think, when I get back, and hopefully we'll be able to think that we're able to sort stuff out later on. But yes, I do apologise that this good morning walk has been a bit all over the place in terms of noise. Like I say, unfortunately I can't control the wind, but nevertheless, and like I say, I've been all over the place this morning, just like, ugh. This is what happens when you come up with a topic and you think, oh, this will be good to talk about. I think I have lots to talk about on this. And then you're like, haven't really thought it through. Hopefully I've been able to get across some of my points. You know, I really do have a good hope for the future of the left. I really do. Because I think that, you know, the Corbyn years has built a lot of momentum, no pun intended, has built a lot of momentum to show everyone that the only way that we can really affect change, and even indeed get into change, into power to get change done, is through the Labour Party. And one of the things that why I did decide to talk about this today was, obviously there's the wind again. One of the things that I wanted to, reason why I wanted to talk about this today was, as you know, the Northern Independence Party, or NIP as they're called. The guy who founded it has he's done a couple of interviews, and I found what he's saying is a lot of what I'm really annoyed about the left. Like, the election that he's running in for Hartlepool is going to split the lefty vote, and everyone recognises that this is an important election for the left, for Labour indeed in general, and the fact that if he's going to split the vote, that could potentially do a lot of damage to Labour and the lefty cause. So this, either way, is, you know, him creating another party is not going to be good. And then he bizarrely had the thing to say that the Liberal Democrats were a progressive party, and I'm like, I don't think the Liberal Democrats have ever been a progressive party. I think they've been pretty much a centrist party for at least as long as I can remember them being like that. You know, please do correct me if you think I'm wrong, you know. You know, it is good, and I'm, like I say, overall I'm not you know, I do want to be positive about going forward, but I think some of the stuff the left does sometimes is, there's no thought behind the actions. And I think you've seen a lot of the, like, one of the things that I see about the Rejoin movement, the idea that we should create our own UKIP to fight back against, you know, the Labour and push them into rejoining the Labour Party, into like rejoining the European Union. That's not going to happen because UKIP especially were funded by millionaires and billionaires with the direct response to essentially push the Conservatives back towards the right after David Cameron brought them more to the centre. That's why UKIP exists. And one of those things that it did was to push for leaving the European Union. It was always a fringe view. But even now, as you can see, the Tory party, they succeeded in pushing the Tory party more and more right. And that's a result of where we are now. We are unfortunately, you know, Donald said, yes, I know, create your own UKIP. It's shocking. But there are a lot of people on the left who are obsessed with that idea that that's what we need to do to rejoin the European Union, that we need to recreate and make our own version of UKIP. And I'm like, that's not going to work. That is not going to work. The only way, as we've said before, we get back into the European Union is, first of all, a lot of people have to recognise the fact that us being in the single market and customs union was incredibly good for our economy, which we are going to find out very, very, very soon. Just how much we need to be in those two things. And the big, you know, the big movement, as I said, we need to be, the left needs to coalesce around one party. And at the end of the day, that's the, you know, that's the objective. We need to coalesce around one party. We can't just spread ourselves around. And it will come to a point where the idea of the electoral pact that's being mooted around a lot recently, like, all the parties need to get together and agree this, and, you know, Labour doesn't need to shouldn't stand in all the seats and let them win the seats and all this stuff. And it's like, that was tried at the 2019 election. The problem was that a lot of people did not understand that they were voting for parties that had never come higher than third place in their constituency. And that led to an even more bleed off from the Labour, especially in the north. Especially in the north. You know, I always tell it when we come to this story of, I remember going to the old post office, which is just in between, you know, Barnsley and Wakefield. And that was where the election night party was for the Labour MP at the time. And there were lots of people in there talking openly about how they hadn't voted for Labour, even though that was her constituency that they were in, and that they wanted there to be a coalition government, but they hadn't, you know, the entire thing about sorting electoral pact had never been talked about. This was just a pipe dream that had been sold by people on the left, and it just didn't work. It didn't work out. And, you know, that was it. It was just, you know, that it was just really, really shocking to find out, but that was it. And that was my moment of, not everyone on the left seems to be open to pragmatism. You know, that was the That was the unfortunate thing. And I am very much for I'm very much for a political alliance, but the problem is I don't think any political alliance will work. We come out of hiding and the wind starts immediately again. Typical. I don't think. Here's the thing, Son of Viking. I don't think the electorate is thick. I think that in the UK, as part of our problem of political apathy we have here, is that not enough people are turned onto politics as they should be. They don't know what's going on in the general day-to-day of Parliament. The general running of things. It's so annoying. Yeah, and you are right, dude. The media is part of the problem. The media has made a lot of people very politically lazy. I think that's the best term. There is, and I think that's part of the problem. And once you get people educated and aware of what's really going on in politics, that's an awareness thing. That is why partly I do my videos, because I want to bring awareness to people about the issues that are going on in Parliament, about politics. I think that's my objective. If I can, one of the things I've always thought was, if I could turn someone who had given up on politics back into, okay, I'm going to start listening to politics again. I'm going to start looking at who I can vote for again. Okay, I'm going to join, a political party. I don't really care if someone decides to get back into politics and not join a political party. I think that's fine as well. I think so long as you are turned on and you are aware of what is going on, in politics, and have at least a very brief inclination of what's going on, then I think we'll be fine in the long run. I really do. And I think I've said this before. I weep when I see France and the left in that country knows and can get behind and can get united on stuff. That's such a wonderful thing to see, because I don't know if you've seen recently, but Le Pen is rising in the polls again in France. Just exactly what we saw last time before Macron came in and won. And here's the thing, people on the left do not like Macron, like people on the left currently do not like Keir Starmer. But the left knows that it is far, far, far better to have someone like Keir Starmer in power than Le Pen in France. So they all united behind Macron to get him in power, But even they have effectively tried to push Macron to enact more of a lefty policy, and they haven't shifted the needle completely, but they have had some significant gains. So that, my friends, is pragmatism. And sometimes you aren't going to get everything you want. You are never ever going to be 100% satisfied with any political candidate. If you ask me, I was always very much with Corbyn. I'd say about at least 70% satisfied with how I think he's been, how Corbyn handled things. So I was never 100% satisfied with Corbyn. But with Starmer, I say at the moment I'm less satisfied than I was. I wouldn't put him about 50% because I'm not 50-50 on him at the moment. I'd say I'm probably around 40-45%. But that doesn't mean, because again I don't like him as a political leader, doesn't mean that I should support him, because look at the alternative. In the Conservative Party, who is going to be better for the UK, Boris or Starmer? And I think that is ultimately the key. Back again, sorry. This is the problem when I'm in the field. Hold on, tell you what. Running to cover. It's difficult running in wellies. There. Morning sports now. Well, like I say, we're about to get under the bridge. Yeah, we're gonna talk about my my stamina. Oh, right. Here we go. Right. So hopefully you'll be able to hear me a lot better now, because unfortunately, technical issues today because of the wind. I'm sorry about that. Like I say, as you know, my microphone has been a bit dodgy with this phone. I don't know why. It's worked sometimes, and then halfway through, it's not worked, and I don't know why. But hopefully we'll be able to... oh Christ, he's now gone on all underground left. That's the only way, really. I've had to go underground. Yeah, where were we? I think someone said 70%. So you're never going to be 100% satisfied with any political candidate. Again, as they said, I was about 70% in favour for Corbyn, really. And Starmer, I think everyone starts off with a very 50-50 opinion of a new political leader when they come in. And I like everyone, was very, very 50-50. I then went up to probably about 60%, and now it's been coming down since then. I'm now probably around about 40-45%. But if you think about the position of the left, you're never ever going to be able to infiltrate the Conservative Party and push it towards the left. That's going to be impossible. It's going to be absolutely impossible to do. There's no chance of it happening. So what you have to do is we have to get behind, the left has to get behind one party and push from there. And the only party to do that is Labour. And if you really are against, you know, you don't like Labour's policies 100% and you'd rather vote for another party, then what you should be doing is, once again, getting behind Labour, making that push for PR, and then getting that proportional representation through, so that then you can vote for the candidate that you want to do. You know, that's essentially what you have to do, really. You know. Morning.
You all right?
Nope. Yeah, I do envy France, and you know they have four parties, but you know, with their system of how the elections work, you know, the left's got options, you know, and the left knows when to coalesce around candidates. Again, the Macron Le Pen election, the left knew that Macron, even though they didn't like Macron, was going to be a far better option than Le Pen, so they coalesced around her. My worry is that the next general election, the left decides not to coalesce around Labour because of Starmer, and then you know you end up with the Conservatives winning again, although with a lot more slimmer majority. That's the worry I've always had for the next election, that Labour's going to drop the ball. That is still my biggest worry of all, that you know they are going to drop the ball on that. But again, we'll have to see. We really will have to see what happens. The local elections are going to be a big decider, shall we say, of which direction things are going to go. Whether that will help, you know, make Starmer think, well, maybe I have to start listening more to the left and even adopt some of their policies. We may see, fingers crossed, PR get through. You know, it is being pushed heavily by local conservative parties, local Labour parties. And then once you get proportional representation through, this is when alliances do come into effect, because you look at European politics with proportional representation and they're all about forming different alliances with different people and different parties. Our current system is set up to completely discourage that because of first past the post, you know. So yeah, but policies are going to help you get into government, Helen. This is my big thing about Starmer, my big thing about why he hasn't brought out any policies. Because at the moment, no one can decide what the Labour Party is, what it actually stands for. And if you can't say what your party stands for, why should anyone vote for you in the first place? You know, elections, you know, you shouldn't be publishing, you know, the thing is, the whole theory on this is that you shouldn't be publishing your policies until about 6 months before a general election. That's daft. That is completely daft. The policies of the party should always be out there so that MPs can be campaigning on them. People like me on the grassroots can be talking about them, why they're good for the country, why it's going to be good for your local area to get involved. You know, this is the thing. You know, that's what I hope. True, it is going to take some coordination, but even if the left, let's say, splits the votes, that could end up with two parties that could unite and be a force for good progressive change in that term of government. You know, that's what I believe, and I do believe we need to that's what I think we need to really understand. The UK left needs to come into a form of pragmatism, and it needs to, if it really does, if people on the left really do want to vote for other parties, then they have to get proportional representation through, or else it's not going to work, you know? And that's the big thing. So thank you for joining me on my hang on, dudes. So hang on. So what happens if Labour self-destructs and the UK becomes a one-party country? Are there any provisions in the law to stop that from happening? Not really, but the main thing will be is that a new party will essentially rise to take its place. It will mean, I think, for at least some time to come, there will be that one party will obviously dominate politics until another party does come and sort itself out. But it always happens. We've seen it before in the past when the Liberal Party imploded back in the the 1930s when they imploded. And, you know, what was left of them, it became the Liberal Democrats. You know, once at one point a ruling party now is consigned to being a third party status that have never ever been close to power for years. And of course, Son of Vikings is right, the Tories aren't one party either. Oh, train going overhead. The Tories aren't one party either. You know, they are very split in what they want and what they want to achieve. The fact that the ERG, the known as the party within the party, is still active, is still an issue and still going to be an issue for Boris and any future Conservative leader. But there are now other parties forming: the Northern Research Group, the COVID Recovery Group, the ridiculous woke culture group that's there. You know, they are going to be driving the party. And I've said for a while now, sooner or later, there's going to be a big bust up between those parties. They cannot contain this bust up for too much longer, because the two big ideas are global Britain and levelling up. And you can't go for one without undermining the other. And there will be a fight in the Conservative Party in the near future. We don't know when it will happen. But yeah, that's essentially what happens. You know, that's it today. You yeah, sorry for the sound issues today. Like I say, unfortunately, I can't control the wind. My microphone, as you'll know, for the past couple of morning walks, has been on the fritz a bit. I was hoping today that the wind would be calmer, shall we say. Unfortunately, that hasn't turned out to be the case. So we've had, unfortunately, a bit of technical difficulties. Like I say, when I get home today, I'm going to buy a buy a new microphone for this phone. Hopefully, yeah. So hopefully, we're going to buy a new mic. Hopefully, fingers crossed. It's always one thing it's always the fun part about my channel. You never know what technical difficulty is going to strike next. We should have a pool of what technical difficulties do you think is going to strike next? But yes, thank you all for joining me today under what was a very, very difficult morning, Ball Hat Man from Barnsley. Good morning to you. Like I say, thank you all for joining me on today's Good Morning Walk. I know that it wasn't up to our usual good standards or not today. And true, I'm going to try and source a new microphone, because like I say, my old microphone wasn't. It's not on today. We haven't put it on today because I was hoping that it would be all right wind-wise today, but unfortunately that was not the case. So yeah, have a very good day. Please do remember to hit that like button on your way out. Like I say, that will help everybody. And of course, we have passed the 9,500 mark, so only another 500 more subscribers, and we will be doing the Jeff Taylor special. As I have said, I have kept to my word. I have not watched any of his videos. I have not visited his channel. So when we do it, I will be going in blind to experience Jeff Taylor in the flesh. But I've seen you talking about I've seen you talking about Jeff before. So I'm both worried and almost simultaneously excited about what I'm letting myself in for. So I think it's going to be good, but anyway, that is not going to be too longer away. So as always, have an absolutely fantastic weekend, and do come back next weekend for another Good Morning Walk, hopefully with less sound issues, because hopefully I will have a new microphone. If not, I'm going to get out my old microphone and we'll just run the gambit, see if that works or not. Yes, hopefully we'll see you all next weekend, and we'll see you all soon for another Good Morning Walk.